Hello everybody, welcome to this video on TutorialsPoint. Today we will talk about effective delegation. Well, before we even begin with this module on effective delegation, I would ask you to ponder over this question. Have you ever felt so bombarded or so pressurized by a lot of workload that you have that you wish to give it away to somebody else, all that work pressure, all that load, giving it away to another peer or another colleague? Well, if you have felt something like this is a video tutorial I would really urge you to watch out for, because in this tutorial today we will talk about effective delegation. Well, let's understand what is in the agenda today for us. We will understand what exactly is delegation all about, the importance and the benefits of delegation. We will also talk about some of the most weirdest of excuses for not delegating, barriers to delegation, and also understand the delegation obstacles, the steps to an effective delegation process, signs that you are micromanaging, and that's what we will talk about in our module today on effective delegation. Well, let's ask firstly, what exactly is this entire term delegation all about? Well, if I have to give you a dictionary definition, delegation is the assignment of responsibility to another person for the purpose of carrying out specific job-related activities. Well, whenever you feel that you can give away your task or your responsibility to another person who equally has the kind of knowledge and experience that you have, and also having the resources in terms of time, money, energy, etc., that is the person you should really delegate your work for. Delegation is a shift of decision-making authority from one organizational level to another. So wherein we talk about delegation, you are really removing your responsibility from that task and giving it away to somebody else. Well, delegation has a lot of benefits, and let's understand what these benefits are at three different levels. Benefits for a manager or a supervisor, benefits for the employee of the organization, and the organizational overall benefits. So let's understand them. As a manager or a supervisor, whenever you delegate your task and your responsibility to somebody else, it helps you to reduce stress. No doubt when you're so much under a lot of work pressure, when you give away that work to somebody else, you will definitely live stress-free. It also helps you to increase your time management. Well, if you have lessened your work, you definitely have more time on your hand to give to those tasks which are more important. So that's what you mean by time management. And it also helps you to increase a lot of trust level. Well, as a manager and a supervisor, if you delegate your work to other people, it helps you in all of these three. Let's understand as an employee what are the benefits for delegation. It helps you to increase your overall knowledge and skill set. Well, if I'm an employee and if somebody delegates a particular task to me, my knowledge and my skill set will definitely improve with regard to that particular task that they have assigned me. It also helps you to elevate your overall self-confidence and self-esteem. Well, if somebody delegates a particular responsibility to me, I will definitely have a boost on my confidence. I will feel like a wow factor because I will feel that somebody has trusted me so much with that particular assignment or task. And it also definitely helps you to have a sense of achievement. Well, my dear friends, having a sense of achievement, feeling self-confidence and self-esteem going high, these are all benefits of an employee when you get delegate to something. As an organizational level, if you look at the bigger picture of the company or the organization, it helps you to increase your teamwork. Well, teamwork, wherever there is an increase in teamwork, it definitely helps you to overall achieve your products, your purchases, as well as your overall objective. It helps you to also increase productivity and efficiency. Well, if employees are well engaged together and they're more productive, it also helps you to reduce their overall stress levels. Now, certain people do not really like delegating and they keep giving themselves and other people excuses for not delegating. Trust me, delegation is a very important leadership skill, and if you want to be a great manager or a great leader, this is something that you need to do, definitely. Now, certain excuses you should not give are something like it's too hard to delegate. Well, delegation is not rocket science, it's a simple process. But once you decide to do it, you have to do it. So do not think that it is very hard or impossible to do. Well, it's not. It takes too much time. You might think of an excuse like, oh, rather if I would delegate it to somebody, it will take too much of time, rather I would do it myself. Another excuse is nobody can do it as good as I can. Well, a lot of people think that they are made to do a particular task and nobody but themselves can do it with that much of effectiveness and concreteness as they can. Well, if you give an excuse like that, you will never be able to delegate. You need to trust your people and you need to delegate tasks to them. Nobody else has time anyway. Well, you really would be surprised to know that a lot of people working in the office today have a lot of free time in their hand. So do not think that people don't have the time for this particular job or assignment. Rather, go ahead and ask them to do it. Now, there are certain barriers to delegation. Now, what exactly are these barriers? Barriers are obstacles which come in the middle of delegating properly. So let's understand what these barriers could be. Certain barriers in the mind of a person who really wants to delegate is knowing when to delegate. It's important to understand when you want to delegate, to whom you want to delegate, and how much of a task do you want to delegate. Well, you also need to be polite in your delegation. You should not speak rudely to people when you're delegating a task to them, like you do this for me and something like that. It's important to have a polite nature, a polite frame of mind and a polite tone whenever you're delegating work to somebody else. And a lot of people also delegate to avoid boredom because you don't want to do the same task again and again and again. It becomes monotonous. So what do? You delegate. So to avoid boredom, people delegate. These are certain barriers for delegation. Now, there are certain obstacles for delegation also. Let's understand what they are. Now, these are in the mindset of the person who is actually wanting to delegate. He wants to do micromanagement. Now, understanding what exactly is micromanagement we will learn in some time from now. But a lot of people like to control over everything, all aspects of the job, all aspects of the task or responsibility. When you start micromanaging, you have too much to do and which leads you with very less time for your own self. Also, having lack of support. You might not get the support from your seniors, your supervisors, your managers, your leaders, or the boss of the organization. Having a lack of support can also lead to an obstacle in delegation. Failure to plan, when you don't plan out your delegation properly. Lack of communication. A lot of people working in the same team have lack of communication with each other. When there is lack of communication, delegation becomes a problem. So communicate effectively with everyone in your team. Fear of losing control. A lot of people feel that if they will delegate a task to another person, they will completely lose control over that particular task or responsibility. By having that kind of fear, it can lead to detrimental issues, and also that person will never delegate if they have a fear of losing the overall control over that assignment. Certain signs and symbols that you are a person who does micromanagement. Let's understand what these signs and symbols are. They resist delegating. They would rather do all the work themselves rather than giving it away to somebody else. Prevent employees from decision making. These are the kind of people who actually would stop people from making decisions or taking decisions because they feel they are the final authority. Remove tasks after they have been assigned. Well, a lot of times what people actually do is they will give a task to somebody else to do, and you know what they do after that? They nicely remove that task. Well, the person has done a lot of hard work and put in a lot of effort for that particular task, and if that task gets removed, it's not a great sign. They avoid letting them work independently. A lot of people actually go ahead and do this. They will assign a task to somebody or they will delegate a particular responsibility to somebody only to harass them in and out by asking them too many questions, and they will not let them work independently. Well, friends, if you have given a task to somebody, if you have delegated responsibilities to somebody, do not keep harassing them, do not keep asking them questions. Let them work independently. Exercise complete control. As we mentioned earlier also, a lot of people like to control over things. They want to have the final authority or control. If these are the signs, that means you are micromanaging. And they will also lose a lot of sleep over it, meaning they will kind of, keep thinking about this task that they have delegated to somebody. They will fear about it, they have a phobia, and they actually keep losing sleep over whether that person will be able to do that particular task properly and no. Well friends, if you are somebody who does all this, means you have signs of micromanaging and you find it difficult to delegate tasks to somebody else. If you really are serious about delegating, I am now going to take you through the steps of delegation. Now, delegation is a very simple process. As I mentioned earlier, it is no rocket science. Let's understand what are these steps for delegation. There are ideals is what we would like to summarize them as. IDEALS. This is an acronym which stands for something, which means that ideal stands for something which is I for introduce the task, D for demonstrate clearly what needs to be done, E stands for ensure understanding, A stands for allocate authority, information as well as resources, L stands for let go, and S stands for support and monitor. Now my dear friends, these ideals that we will speak about in detail right now are actually the steps which will help you to delegate effectively and properly. Let's understand the first step of delegating, which is known as I introduce the task. Now firstly, it's important to understand whom you would like to introduce the task to. So identifying the right kind of person is important. So determine the task to be delegated. You need to firstly understand what task you want to delegate. Determine the task to retain, which tasks you don't want to delegate and you want to retain those tasks with yourself, and select the delegate, the person who will be the candidate to whom you will assign that particular task. So these are three important steps for introducing that particular task. Secondly, D stands for demonstrating clearly. Now you need to show examples of previous work. Whoever is the concerned person whom you have introduced the task to, you need to make sure that you share with that person all the previous tasks and examples as well as research work so that the person has sufficient amount of data. You also need to explain the objectives. Now the task that you are delegating to, you need to make the person understand what is the overall objective or goal of this particular task that you have given them. Discuss timelines and set deadlines. Now this is a very important step, for the only reason being that if you don't give them a set deadline, they will continue with that work over a week, over a month, over 3 months probably. So you need to set certain timelines wherein you need them to finish that task within that particular deadline. Moving on to the third step, which is E stands for ensure understanding. The person whom you have introduced the task to, you need to ensure that the person understands completely regarding that particular task or responsibility. So you need to have clear communication. You need to communicate in a very nice, clear, precise and a simple manner what you want them to do. You need to ask for clarification, whether the person has understood what you're really trying to say to them. So ask for any kind of doubts or clarification. Secure commitment. The person whom you have delegated the task to needs to be committed like you to that particular task. The person cannot accept the responsibility and finally run away from the responsibility. He needs or she needs to commit completely to that task. Don't say no to them in case they ask you for any extra favors or help. You cannot say no to them. And collaborate and decide on methods to follow up. When you have given a task to a particular person, you need to also ask them how they would like to be followed up in terms of whether it should be a weekly review, a monthly review, a fortnightly review, however you want them. So it has to be a collaborative decision on the same. Moving on to the fourth step of delegating, which is allocate authority, information and resources. Well, the person who has actually got this particular task needs to understand that they have to have certain amount of resources and responsibilities. So grant the authority to determine the processes, avoid or rather provide access to all the information resources. The person whom you have delegated the task to needs to have all the information which you have, which you can share with them, any kind of research data, facts, figures, previous examples, etc. should be given out to them. Provide appropriate training to ensure success. Though the person whom you are delegating to might have a lot of knowledge and skill, but it is not a problem if you can provide a little bit of more detailed training to them with regards to that particular task or responsibility. The fifth step is L, which stands for let go. Now, as a person who has delegated that responsibility to another person, you need to let go after a point of time. Do not hold on, do not control the circumstance or the person. So, communicate delegates authority, step back and let them work. Just let them be. Do not hover around them or harass them with too many questions. Use constrained access as much as you can. Do not want to pick up the phone and talk to them or email them too frequently. Give them their space to work around the task. Don't allow for reverse delegation. It should not be that you have delegated to somebody and the person delegates work back to you. So it's important to understand all of these points to let go. And the last but not the least acronym of IDEAL stand for S, which is support and monitor. Well, you need to schedule follow-up meetings. After you have delegated the task, you and the delegated person needs to collaborate and come up with when you would want them to follow up or review. Review the progress at regular intervals. After you've delegated, do not wash your hands of the responsibility. You are still in complete control of that authority, if not complete, partial control. So review the progress as much as possible. Assist whenever required or requested. If the other person wants you to assist them in any particular way, please go ahead and do that. Avoid any kind of interference. Do not kind of interfere too much into their day-to-day activities. Let them work peacefully. Publicly praise progress and completion. Now, everybody loves to be praised and recognized for the task that they're doing, and ensure that you do it in a public manner so that everyone is around whenever you're giving any positive reward to them or recognition to them. Encourage problem solving. Whenever they come up with any kind of problems, make sure that you help them solve the problem, because let's understand, you are the person who has the domain knowledge about that task, and it's a good idea to help them solve the problems. Well friends, that brings us to the complete end of this particular module, which is delegating effectively. Well, I do hope you have really enjoyed listening to this particular module of how to delegate, whom to delegate, and the steps of delegation. Ensure that you start practicing this in your workspace or in your day-to-day life, which will ensure that you will be able to really come up with this particular module on delegating. Thank you very much for listening to us, and bye-bye.